The afternoon sun beat down on the village of Umuoma as Chidubem sat beneath the iroko tree, watching his wife, Ugoma, return from the stream with a clay pot balanced gracefully on her head. Her wrapper swayed with each step, and her laughter rang out as she exchanged greetings with the other women. She was beautiful, everyone agreed, her skin the color of polished mahogany, her smile bright enough to light up the darkest night. Yet lately, a shadow of doubt had crept into Chidubem's heart. He had heard whispers, nothing concrete, nothing he could confront her with, but enough to plant seeds of suspicion in the fertile soil of his mind. Did she truly love him? Would she protect him if danger came? Or would she, like the women in the cautionary tales the elders told, betray him when tested? That evening, as the cooking fires sent spirals of smoke into the darkening sky, Chidubem set his plan in motion. He wandered through the village, asking here and there until he found what he needed, a large calabash, round and unremarkable. He carried it home and waited until the compound was quiet. In the privacy of his hut, Chidubem selected the fattest cock from his small flock. The bird protested loudly as he held it firmly, but with one swift motion he silenced it. He let the blood drip onto the calabash, smearing it carefully across the surface until it looked ritualistic, ominous. He plucked several feathers and pressed them into the sticky blood, creating the appearance of a sacred object, something tied to the spirit world, something dangerous to disturb. When he was satisfied with his work, he hung the calabash in the corner of the hut, where it would be impossible to miss, where its presence would loom over their daily lives like a dark promise. The next morning, Chidubem called Ugama into the hut. The light filtering through the thatched roof cast dancing shadows on the walls. He took her hands in his face grave with manufactured solemnity. "My beloved wife," he began, his voice heavy with false vulnerability, "I have something important to share with you, something that shows how deeply I trust you." Ugama's face brightened with curiosity and pleasure. "What is it, my husband?" Chidubem gestured toward the calabash hanging in the corner. "Do you see that calabash?" "Yes, I see it," she replied, her eyes following his gesture. Even from where she stood, she could see the blood and feathers adorning it. "That calabash," Chidubem said slowly, letting each word sink in, "contains my life force. It is where my spirit is bound for protection. As long as it hangs there undisturbed, I will live and prosper. But if that calabash is ever pulled down, if it falls and breaks—" He paused dramatically, meeting her eyes. "I will drop dead immediately. My spirit will be released, and I will be no more." Ugama's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening with shock and concern. "But husband, why would you do such a thing?" "For protection," he said simply. "The Dibia assured me it was necessary. But I'm telling you this because I trust you completely. You must never, under any circumstances, touch that calabash. No matter what happens between us, no matter how angry you become, you must protect it as you would protect my very life." She nodded vigorously, tears forming in her eyes. "I promise, my husband, I would never harm you. I love you too much. Your life is more precious to me than my own." Chidubem smiled and embraced her, but behind her back, his eyes remained cold and watchful. For several weeks, life continued peacefully. Ugama cooked his meals, tended the compound, and moved carefully around the calabash as though it were a sleeping serpent. But Chidubem was patient. He knew that true tests come not in times of peace, but in moments of conflict. One evening, he manufactured a quarrel. It started small, a complaint about the soup being too salty, a criticism about the way she had swept the compound. Ugama tried to remain calm, apologizing and explaining, but Chidubem pressed harder. He raised his voice, accused her of laziness, and questioned her respect for him. His words grew sharper, more cutting, designed to wound and provoke. Ugama's face transformed from confusion to hurt to anger. Her voice rose to match his. "You are being unfair. I work from dawn to dusk for this family." "Unfair?" Chidubem thundered. "I am the head of this household. You will speak to me with respect." The argument escalated, filling the evening air with harsh words and raw emotion. The other compounds could surely hear them. Shame and rage warred on Ugama's face. Then suddenly something shifted in her expression. Her eyes darted toward the hut. Without another word, she turned and ran inside. Chidubem's heart pounded as he followed her, knowing exactly what she intended to do. He reached the entrance just in time to see her grab the calabash and hurl it to the ground with all her strength. The calabash shattered against the earthen floor with a hollow crack, the dried blood and feathers scattering across the room like the broken pieces of her vow. Ugama spun around, her chest heaving, her eyes wild with rage and perhaps a touch of fear. She seemed to be waiting for her husband to collapse, to gasp his last breath, to pay the price for his cruelty. But Chidubem stood in the doorway, very much alive, arms crossed, a sad smile playing at his lips. The silence stretched between them like a vast chasm. You're still standing," Ugama whispered, confusion replacing anger. "Yes," Chidubem said quietly. "I am still standing. There was no ritual, no magic, no spirit bound to that calabash, just the blood of a cock and some feathers, just a test." The color drained from Ugama's face as understanding dawned. "A test?" "A test you failed," Chidubem said, his voice devoid of anger but heavy with disappointment. "I told you that calabash held my life. I told you I trusted you to protect it. And at the first moment of anger you ran to destroy it. You tried to kill me, Ugama." She sank to her knees among the broken pieces, tears streaming down her face. I didn't think. I was so angry. I wasn't thinking clearly." "That is exactly when your true nature shows itself," Chidubem replied. "When you're angry, when you're hurt, when you think no one is watching. That's when we see who people really are." He turned to leave, then paused. "I loved you enough to trust you with my greatest secret, or so I made you believe. But you loved your anger more than you loved my life." In the days that followed, life in their compound was never quite the same. Ugama tried to apologize, to explain, to make amends, but something fundamental had broken between them, more thoroughly than the calabash had shattered. Chidubem became a changed man. He kept his own counsel, shared his deeper thoughts with no one, and maintained a polite but distant relationship with his wife. When other men in the village complained about their wives or sought his marriage advice, he would smile knowingly and say simply, "Keep your secrets, my brothers. Not everything needs to be shared, even with those we love." The story of the calabash eventually spread through Umori and beyond, becoming a cautionary tale told by elders to young couples. Some called Chidubem wise, others called him cruel for testing his wife so. But none could deny the lesson it taught, that trust, once broken, can never be fully restored, and that the true measure of a person's character is revealed not in times of peace, but in moments of anger and pain. The broken pieces of the calabash were swept away, but their lesson remained, hanging in the air like smoke from an evening fire. A reminder that some tests, once failed, can never be retaken, and some knowledge, once gained, can never be unlearned.